Hi, folks. Welcome back to part two of Cast the Future, our first episode where we recast Back to the Future and have it released in the year of 2020. Again, I am your host, Curtis Lopez. I am also the declaration judge. We also got Erik back as one of our debaters. We got Danny back as one of our debaters. We got Logan back as one of our judges. We got Kevin back as one of our judges. And just to give you a recap what happened for part one, here's our cast so far for Back to the Future in 2020. Playing Strickland is John C. McGinley, Jennifer Parker, we got Joey King, Biff Tannen, we got Jimmy Tatro, Lorraine, we got Florence Pugh, and for George McFly, we got Asa Butterfield. So we're going to continue on into the next round, where we're going to cast Dr. Emmett Brown, who was played by Christopher Lloyd in the original Back to the Future trilogy. And he's described as the inventor of the DeLorean time machine. He's the world's third time traveler, second to travel forwards in time, and the first human to travel forwards in time, second human to travel through time. And he is best friends with Marty McFly. So it says here on the Futurepedia, Back to the Future fan Wikipedia, that he's the second to actually time travel after Einstein. So that's interesting. That was probably an episode in the Back to the Future cartoon. I don't know. So let's go on with it. So Danny, will you share with us your choice to play the 2020 version of Dr. Emmett Brown?
I went with Bryan Cranston. Yes. I think, obviously, he's a big actor right now, ever since Breaking Bad. Honestly, Breaking Bad's a very good example of how he could play this role. A comedic version of that, but I mean, he's a scientist in Breaking Bad. He creates something that changes the whole world there. And he works with someone in their 20s. So, he's got that partnership. But really, I think he's a very versatile actor. He's done a lot of stage work. He's done a very varied career, even prior to Breaking Bad, with his biggest thing being comedy. So he did, he was one of the most things he was famous for was his role as the dentist on Seinfeld. But then, Malcolm in the Middle. So there's a lot of things there. He works great with kids. So not that we might cast a kid the kids on Malcolm in the Middle age, but casting younger actors, he works great off them. He's also just got a crazy energy. I can see him doing similar things to Christopher Lloyd. He can commit so hard. Like Christopher Lloyd, he's done a lot of theater. Before, Christopher Lloyd had also a very all-over career. He was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. He was on Taxi as the supporting character, but then and then he does this. So I kind of want a little bit of a serious actor in there who plays comedy really well. So I went with Bryan Cranston because he kind of fits that bill. He brings a certain seriousness, certain gravitas. Yeah, I think he can be really funny. I like to see a little bit of that energy he brought to Godzilla, where he's very dedicated to his cause. Yeah, I think he could do it really well. He's obviously a great actor. So let's give it to good old Bryan Cranston, good old Hal.
And hopefully he's not killed in the first 10 minutes. Okay, Erik, what do you think?
Again, thank you. I'm glad someone mentioned Godzilla. My choice for Dr. Emmett Brown is, I hope I say his last name right, Jason Mantzoukas. He has worked with Michael Schur several times, especially on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Recreation, and my favorite performance of his was on The Good Place. But he's made a career out of playing loose cannons that are worth rooting for, just like Dr. Emmett Brown. I feel like he displays that manic energy very well. And he has those wide, intense eyes. Especially that would be amazing to see as he reacts to Marty when he proves, oh yeah, this is how the flux capacitor was invented. This is how he came up with that. I feel like you just have those eyes what did you say? Like if you had like a crackpot scientist, like all his loose cannons that he's ever played, I feel like he would be the perfect Emmett Brown. And he's like another ensemble actor, but he like doesn't have to be as intense as he is on Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Big Mouth. Because I thought, I'm like, is this all this guy can do? But it turns out it was The Good Place, because he kind of takes it from a 10 down to like a 7 or a 6 in The Good Place when he plays Derek. And he doesn't have to, especially on Big Mouth, he doesn't have to be that crazy. But I feel like he'd work really well because he's been in a wide range of productions. And he's just one of those actors, I feel, that needs a breakout performance. Like Christopher Lloyd, like it was mentioned earlier, did like Taxi and of course Cuckoo's Nest, but he's still a supporting part. Mantzoukas has been doing that for a long time. I think this would be the perfect breakout for him.
Okay, all right, you two, debate it out.
Well, I love Bryan Cranston, but I wish it was the Back to the Future that it existed. But Bryan, oh man, I got to think about this. It's a great actor. It's so hard because like you made that Godzilla like Godzilla, but
he was in Network on Broadway. Who's a more kind of like, I'm mad as hell, I can't take it anymore, so he can play that. But like, just imagine
seeing that
comedy.
I can't see Peter Finch.
Like just imagine that geared towards comedy. I like would be very excited to see that. Again, he hasn't done a lot of comedies. He's done like little things here or there.
For years. If he uses that high-pitched voice, I'd say yes. But it's like, then I see how. It's like, what else could he bring to a comedy is what I'm asking. Like Mantzoukas has just been doing this his whole career. But it'd be like
been doing comedy.
Maybe he could show off the dramatic chops he never had a chance to show off. And Bryan, we know he can.
This isn't a very dramatic role. I don't know if this is like
just those little, like, it's the little moments is what I'm talking about. Those like tiny moments, like, oh yeah, you bet. Or there's times when he's not like always like, oh my god, he's always like eyes wide open. He's always like crazed, looks like he's on coke. No, like he has moments of being like heartfelt. And I think it would be can Mantzoukas do that? I really hope he can. But it's those crazy moments. I just think Mantzoukas would nail it and make us laugh the whole time. Because when he goes crazy on all those shows, I am just laughing nonstop, especially when you first see him in Brooklyn Nine-Nine as Adrian Pimento. But
yeah, I love Mantzoukas as an actor. Like I love Derek. He was like one of my favorite parts of The Good Place. I think he's a little young. I think he's only in his 40s, which that's a very simple way to write it off. But like, yeah, I think he's only in his 40s, and I like that. I like the idea of bringing in an older actor, someone in their 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
Just like it gives a different energy. It makes it a little bit weirder. It brings in this different generation to it. Mm-hmm. And I agree, Mantzoukas is really good about the crazy stuff. But like,
beard down too, like they can just whiten his beard and then take the white off for the younger.
Yeah, I like again, we get makeup, we get stuff. It's like age isn't the biggest thing. I want someone older though. I want someone who actually is. I want to try and cast people who like are their age. Like I know technology is caught up where we can dance around things, but it's like I'd rather try and cast people closer to what the age of the characters are. My thing with Mantzoukas is when his brand of crazy is more, there is something wrong with this dude.
Oh yeah, there's something wrong with Emmett Brown.
Yeah, but like
I feel like there is a bit of a screw loose. I mean, he's very intelligent, but there's still a screw loose,
but intelligent. And like you need someone you can believe. Like, what I love about Emmett Brown something is, like, he also builds the model of the town, but apologizes that it's not painted or to scale fully. So, like, you can believe he's a smart dude. He works hard. He's a scientist. He, like, works at it. Where Mantzoukas, as much as I love him, you just believe he is a guy off the rails, just somehow works within these systems. And I want to prefer someone who can bring a little bit of that serious energy. and addition to the crazy. And Bryan Cranston, like, he's been doing comedy forever. Like, some of his earliest roles were he did the dubs of Power Rangers villains.
He
Like,
still came back for the new one.
Pumpkin villain. And someone can correct me on that if that's not true, but he like did a lot of comedy and like did these kind of weird, crazy roles, but also can ground it in something serious. And we know he can play a bit of a mad scientist because that's basically what Walter White is, but grounded in this realism. I think he also has a lot of heart. Breaking Bad works because we root for him, and that's, I think, because of the heart.
Until the end of season 4.
Huh?
It said until the end of season 4 we root for him.
I
didn't. I did not root for him after that final season. No, final season I was not rooting for him.
Felina is such a good episode. We still.
Oh yeah, but no. But I still feel like it's Jason Mantzoukas would work because he's always typecast as that character, and I'm like, he's still an actor. So I feel like if he really worked with the director worked with him, like he could take it a step back. Like it would be an opportunity to still use his talents, but also escape that typecast, and then he could try even more roles where he's not always that loose cannon.
I guess I don't think he has quite the star power for this role. Like
I think this would give him the star power, like Christopher
for
Lloyd.
this role. Yeah, but you want the star power coming in because this is the second lead to the movie. And again, I like Mantzoukas, but I want someone with a little more nuance. I want someone with a little more experience in this role. This is a scientist. This is someone who's been working for years and years and years and years. He's in his 60s in the movie. Like, I want someone who brings a little more to it. Mantzoukas, I think, is great, but I think he plays the crazy real well. I don't know if he can play the other stuff well.
Well, it's the opportunity to see in this audition.
Okay, but, we can do that in another movie.
All right.
Okay, guys, this is a good round. Good picks, good arguments all around. I love the Jason Mantzoukas pick. I love Erik. He's a loose cannon actor. He could play wide-eyed and crazy really well, has great comedic timing. He's been in a lot of comedy. And Danny, I love your arguments about Bryan Cranston, about his experience he has, how versatile he is, that he could work. He works great with young actors, which is why I'm going to go with Danny's decision for Bryan Cranston. I think Bryan is a little bit more versatile. I think because there's scenes in Back to the Future, especially when you get later on into the other movies, that Doc Brown doesn't just deliver the laughs and the comedic timing. He can also be kind of heartfelt. He could be kind of warm. He could be sentimental at times. I think Bryan Cranston can bring that. So I'm going with Danny's decision for Bryan Cranston. How about you, Kevin?
All right, this is a very interesting duo of actors that I didn't think would be like a really like nail-biting decision for me, but it is. I think that Jason Mantzoukas and Bryan Cranston, I think in terms of their ability to play Doc Brown, I think it's equivalent. I think Jason Mantzoukas is a very good, capable comedic actor, and Bryan Cranston's Bryan Cranston. There's no need to he could totally do it. So for me, the way that I make my decision is I have to put my casting director hat on for a second and think, okay, well, who do we already have in this movie? And if we want it to be successful, we need a little bit more star power because Joey King, Asa Butterfield, none of them are like bring you into the theaters. Maybe nowadays Florence Pugh might be able to because but she's still up and coming. So I think that's what kind of leads me towards, and I thought I was going to pick Jason Mantzoukas, but I'm actually going to go with Bryan Cranston because I think it's a role that he wasn't even necessarily born to play. Like, I don't look at Bryan Cranston and be like, oh, he could totally do it. I just think he has such the caliber of acting chops that he would make it a phenomenal role. So that's my choice.
All right, so I guess that's the vote. It's 2-1, so it's best two out of Jamie. So Bryan Cranston is our official Doc Brown for Back to the Future 20.
I don't know if we have
hear what Logan has to say.
fixed time today, but Logan, do you just want to comment on it at all? Like,
Sure, Logan,
Who would you have picked?
Sure. I mean, I think both arguments are very well put together. I do agree that Bryan Cranston has the kind of frenetic energy, but I also can really see Mantzoukas. I can see Mantzoukas having uh, the nervous energy of, yeah, I made this entire thing in a day, and then just realizing, oh man, I didn't make it to scale. I'm really sorry about that, and that kind of being a cool little extra layer to character. So if I was going to do a choice, honestly, I would pick Mantzoukas for Doctor.
Also, one more thing about Mantzoukas, just thinking about the future and how great he was with Stephanie Beatriz in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. If we ever cast part 3, she's my top pick for Claire.
Oh, okay.
I think they'd be fantastic together again.
Okay, let's go to our next round. We're gonna cast the hero of our story, Marty McFly. Of course, Marty is the teenager in 1985, best friends with Doc Brown, skateboarder, wannabe rock star, goes into the past, meets his parents, and tries to solve everything, tries to get back home. He's a kid with a bit of an attitude, but with a lot of heart too. So, Erik, who do we got as your Marty McFly?
For my Marty McFly, I have Jack Dylan Grazer from Shazam and It. Played Eddie in It, and also he was so good in Shazam. But speaking of Shazam, he had the task that he had to keep up with Zachary Levi's comedic timing. Not only did he keep up, Jack was unforgettable. He delivered his lines with confidence, yet was fearless in displaying awkwardness. We didn't be scared of his mother, like coming on to him. So I feel like if you look at that face that he had when he first sees Pennywise in It, I feel like there's the fear. I feel like he displayed that awkwardness very well. But I heard after he shot that scene, he snapped out of it like that. Like he just start like after being so freaked out of looking at Pennywise, he was just like smiling, cracking jokes, having fun. Like he just expresses so much dimension. And like imagine, like especially even when he freaks out when he first sees Billy as Shazam. Like all of a sudden Victor walks into the room and he has to play it cool and lie to Victor. It's like the lying and like Marty being like nervous around, like especially as like grandparents. I think Jack would do a great job with that. Also, Jack is also at an age where he could like be around for like the long run, like especially like Shazam and It Chapter 2 kind of did us a favor by casting the adult actors. So you might as well cast Adam Brody as the older version of Marty McFly, because he already looks like him. And also he works very well in ensembles and still finds a way to steal the show. And okay. I think like he'd shine in all solo scenes. So he's my choice, Jack Dylan Grazer.
Okay, Danny, who's your pick?
Well, the thing about my pick is it doesn't quite work with our cast. So, do I still go with it, or can I throw someone in last minute?
Do you have a second?
Yeah, I have a ringer.
You have a ringer? Okay. Oh, say whoever you feel comfortable with.
So I originally went with Shameik Moore, mostly based on his performance as Miles Morales in Into the Spider-Verse. He just brought the kind of Marty McFly energy I want to see to that, as like kind of nerdy but cool, like confident but still figuring things out kind of kid, still kind of working against his parents. I thought he would be great. He's a younger actor, but he's worked with Baz Luhrmann, and he's worked with on The Get Down. He worked with Rick Fumi. I forget the director. Huh?
Yama? I think that's his name is.
Fumiyama? Yeah, but he when he did Dope. So like that's humble, working with young actors. I thought he'd make a great choice. It also brings diversity to it, but I don't know how Florence Pugh and Asa Butterfield have Shameik Moore. They could adopt, but then the whole tension of the movie doesn't work. So,
Did you see Shameless?
In another world, we could go Rick Fumia, or we could go Shameik Moore if we want to reopen one of the two parents. But since it'd be a little tough to explain, we have to jump through a few hoops. I'm going to go with kind of the first person who comes to mind, the first person I think if Universal were to remake this, they would try and get, and that's Tom Holland. Like he's the guy. He's the right age. He is the right energy. He's Spider-Man. Spider-Man, like, and Peter Parker, I should say, and Marty McFly, they have a lot in common of the kind of cool, but like not like the coolest kid vibe. Like they've got an intelligence to them. I think Tom Holland has a lot of Michael J. Fox's energy, where he is like this smart kid, very easily excitable, but like also very easily overwhelmed. Like I can see Tom Holland really capturing the same sort of energy of Michael J. Fox in those scenes of like oh man, this is heavy, Doc. Like that just like, I mean, he's playing a version of that with Tony Stark or Robert Downey Jr. trying to get that approval. So we know he can also work really well. Like, I mean, Tom Holland got his start. His big break was playing one of Naomi Watts and Ewan McGregor's kids in The Impossible. So, like, right away, he proved he can work with, like, older actors. He's always had good chemistry. He's a guy I think is going to be working for a long time. I want to see more different things from Tom Holland, but I think this is a good start for him still. And he's like the kind of cool kid right now, and I think he can do it. For me, it's the obvious choice.
Okay, guys, debate it out.
I love he said that. He was the obvious choice, especially because they did that video very recently. Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland were digitally inserted into a scene in Back to the Future. And I was considering Tom Holland, of course, but I'm like, he's too obvious.
That's why I went a different way at first. He's a little too obvious. I said to a friend that if Disney were remaking it, they'd probably get him and Jeff Goldblum for Doc and Marty.
I consider Jeff Goldblum too.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum's another obvious choice. We bring in Tom Holland. We got our moneymaker there, along with Cranston, along with Pugh. I like Jack Dylan Grazer, I'll admit, I gave him a tour once during Horror Made Here.
What? What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
When they were doing that show on the lot, what was it?
Bobby
Moynihan. Me, Myself, and I.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and all the kids came to Horror Made Here for like one night, and then I just happened to be in the lineup at the right time, and Maggie put him on my tour, which is pretty sweet. And he's a good little kid. To me, he's still a little kid. I think he's like, I don't know how old he is right now.
15.
Huh?
So he's 15. He's like around the same age as Joey King. So I was like, the
15,
two of
yeah.
them
So
like all the same
kind of
age.
works with Joey King, but as I don't know if you said yesterday or Travis said yesterday, women mature faster. So I think she could play like kind of closer to 18. Where to me, he still brings this young sort of kid energy, which like, not that that's a huge problem, but like Michael J. Fox was like 24, 25 when he played Marty. And like, I want just a teeny bit older. I want someone who's a little more experienced.
By the time this movie gets made, I feel like Jack will be at like the appropriate age, even like 16, 17, maybe 16, but he's still growing up. His voice has already dropped as we hear in Shazam, but he's also getting taller too. So I feel like, and also I think he would work, like now that Bryan Cranston's the choice, I feel like he'd work really well with adults because he had to do that with Zachary Levi for an entire movie. And you think like, oh, like who is this kid? Is he going to keep up with Chuck? Turned out he did, and honestly stole every scene even from Zachary Levi.
He's great in Shazam. He was, I think, I argue,
fantastic in it.
Kids in it. And is there something else he was doing? It's like there's some third thing besides that show. I feel like there's another thing he was in. No, he's a good actor. I think he's a little too nervous. Like that's kind of the energy he brings. He's a
Isn't that what I feel
I'd
like?
rather him play a young like
from the scenes with Lorraine. I feel like Jack would play like the nervousness he has, like being around Lorraine and his grandparents. Like he just can
but
display
to
that
me
so
that's
well,
like one tool he's got, and I don't know if he's quite there that he's got all these other tools for fine. That I want to see him play something else. He's got that. I'm not saying he's going to be bad in those scenes.
You're not saying the robot.
No, he is not a robot like Asa Butterfield is a robot. No. He's a good actor. I like him. I want to see more. I don't think he's quite ready to take this mantle yet. He's had a lot of supporting roles, and I think he's still in that zone. I think he needs a little more of a build before we put him forefront as our lead, as our Marty McFly. And I just don't know. I like him as an actor, but like his sort of energy is the kid who kind of wants to be cool, but just isn't a cool kid. He's just that kind of dorky dude that you love anyway. Like, I mean, that's his role in Shazam. Is he's the
But I feel like Jack also has a lot of time.
Huh?
For Tom Holland, he's busy playing Spider-Man, and they'll end up with this very similar Michael J. Fox situation when he was doing Family Ties and then going to and from.
Yeah.
It's just, I think like Tom Holland's gotten so busy and all the other projects he's got planning. Jack, I feel like he'd have a little bit more time on his hands, especially to commit to the role even more. It's like, which one would Tom Holland phone into? As talented as he is, it's just
it seems like they're taking a break from Spider-Man right now. I don't know what the deal is with the next one.
He's still Spider-Man.
Tom Holland might have a break. He might be able to jump in, and I think he'd probably want to do something different that is a little different from Peter Parker and even if it is a similar.
We at least got to see what he would be like as Marty McFly, but I mean, he was still emulating Michael J. Fox. I would like to see what Tom Holland could really bring to the part. Maybe something.
And I think like if you were to give him the role whole cloth, he could do that. But like it is something that's in his wheelhouse. Again, it is the obvious choice, but sometimes you just gotta go. You know, sometimes you gotta bet on black and just like let it ride. You gotta bet on the safe choice.
It's like everyone wanted Bryan Cranston to play Lex Luthor. I wish we got that, but it was like he was that obvious of a choice for that part. And I feel that way with Tom Holland being Marty McFly. Just like, oh, it's that obvious, and it's just, will Tom Holland like is the part for Marty McFly is the point for him to like stick out like a sore thumb or be a part of an ensemble. You know what I mean?
I think he fits in with an ensemble. I mean, he's an Avenger. Like he found ways to like be an Endgame, not take away from anyone, but then like when he has his moments, like when he sees Tony at the battle, like he just the whole movie like becomes his because he's so good. And it's like, let's just give it to him. He can play all the beats really well. We know what he's like with awkward parents. Like, think of that scene in the car with Michael Keaton in Homecoming.
That's still the greatest scene in the MCU.
It is inarguably
one of them.
There.
One of the most intense scenes in the MCU.
We could open back up and cast Michael Keaton and Doc Brown, but let's not go. I'm just saying.
Think of that. Why did I think of that?
If we want a ringer, let's just throw in our guy Tom Holland. And Jack Dylan Grazer, just a little too young for it. That's my final word.
Go with the role. We'll see.
All right, this is good round. Well, I love both of these choices, honestly. If they were to announce tomorrow they're doing Back to the Future, like a reboot, remake, and it was either Jack Dylan Grazer or Tom Holland, I would have been awesome with any of them. I think you two brought some excellent arguments to this, which makes this round, for lack of a better term, kind of heavy. So Jack Dylan Grazer, I love Erik that you argued that he has a lot of energy. He has great timing. He has great chemistry with adults, as we see Shazam with Zachary Levi. Works great with an ensemble cast. And even though Danny, that Tom Holland's the obvious choice, I love the arguments. He still brought to it. He does have Michael J. Fox's energy. He's excited. He'll be overwhelmed. Work with actors. I went back and forth throughout this debate. Like Jack Dylan Grazer sounds more better. No, Tom Holland does. So Jack. Tom, no, Jack. Like and I came to a decision.
You're going with Ty Sheridan.
Even though it is obvious, I am going to go with Tom Holland because with Tom Holland, he can bring that kind of energy, even though it's too obvious as a choice. I think I was going with Jack Dylan Grazer for most of the debate, but then Danny, you brought up something that really changed my mind a bit, you brought the homecoming scene where Tom Holland's in the car with Michael Keaton, and he could bring that his like. There's a lot of scenes in Back to the Future where Marty's not funny all the time in Back to the Future. Sometimes he'd be a little tense. Sometimes he's put in a situation where he feels awkward, or he feels scared, or he feels threatened. And I think Tom Holland can really bring that into performing Marty. So I'm going to go with the obvious choice. With Tom Holland. Logan, what do you think?
Can I add one thing real quick? More of a joke, but we've already seen Tom Holland fade away, so.
Oh, God.
Too soon. Oh, he was
I don't want to go.
Well, when it comes to this, I think I do like both choices, but I think that Tom Holland is honestly too obvious a choice, at least if it was me. I think that if I'm remembering back, like when the first Back to the Future came out, Michael J. Fox was, you knew kind of who he was from TV, but he wasn't as big a name, and Back to the Future is what made him that big a name. And honestly, when it came to the arguments, a lot of the arguments you were using, Danny, kind of seemed to prove why it almost should be Jack. Like saying, oh, well, Tom just wants to branch out and do something different, so let's put him in this, where he's a sidekick to an eccentric scientist type, where he's, where like there's a lot of similarities to what he's been. So it's like, if I had to choose, I think I would go with Erik's choice of Jack Dylan Grazer.
All right, Kevin, your deciding vote. No pressure.
Well, this is a lot of pressure, Curtis. This is a lot of pressure. So let me start by saying both great choices. Both great choices. I think they're very interesting because they're kind of two opposite ends of a spectrum in that you've already said it, Danny. Tom Holland is the obvious choice. He's like the picking Robert Downey Jr. to play Iron Man. He's like picking Tom Hanks to play Walt Disney. It's like something that obviously it's like, oh, well, that's perfect casting. But Jack Dylan Grazer, to me, is more unexpected. It's like when you found out that Michael Keaton was going to play Batman, or when you found out Heath Ledger was going to be the Joker, you're like, okay, let's see how that plays out. That's just my opinion on that. And it's like, if you were going to pick someone from the Losers Club from It, I'm shocked that Finn Wolfhard wasn't in the discussion or like brought up, but
he's working a lot. He's doing a lot. He's in Ghostbusters. He's in
everything. Every 80s reboot you can imagine.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm going to go with my choice of Tom Holland is that I agree that Jack Dylan Grazer seems a little bit too young for the part. And I think that, because we had this whole discussion earlier in part one about people looking the right age, people being too old, and you want someone who actually looks like they're in high school. But to me, there's also the reverse problem with that, where you cast too young looking of people, and like the adults who go see the movie, they're like, this kid's like in middle school. Like I've had that feeling before watching a movie that's set in high school where I'm like, this kid does not look like he should be in high school. He looks like he should be in kindergarten or something. Not to make fun of Jack Dylan Grazer for looking that young, but I think Tom Holland is such an obvious choice that it's like hard to deny. And I think the image in my head of Tom Holland and Bryan Cranston in a remake of Back to the Future, it's like, oh, perfect. Let's just sign it right now. So I'm going to go with Tom Holland. Although, even if you had stuck with Shameik Moore, I would have picked it just because why not? That would have been hilarious just to have Shameik Moore with his parents being Florence Pugh and Asa Butterfield. That would just
but then he doesn't fade away. No, I was thinking about it all last night of like, do I just stick with it or do I bring in the ringer?
He could have the
Perfect ringer.
issue of being threatened, not ever being adopted. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that could be it. They don't never adopted. Yeah.
They don't fall in love. They don't become like
He's
a
just
foster
end
parent.
up in a foster home or an orphanage, and it just gets very depressing very fast.
Yeah.
I will say, if anyone in here hasn't seen Dope, go watch it. That movie's amazing.
Dope is awesome. The music
I have
is
not
awesome.
seen Dope, so I
Okay.
do. And I thought about Tony Revolori too.
Woo!
Zero, yeah.
Yeah. I thought he could have done it well.
I'm
Okay.
also, wait, real quick. When I saw this idea of casting Back to the Future, my first one that came to my head was Flea as Doc Brown. I know we're already past Doc Brown, but I just got to say, it would be hilarious because he was in Back to the Future 2 and 3.
Yeah.
He's like a crazy person in real life, and he's also a good actor. But Bryan Cranston's a better choice. I just had to get that off my chest.
He's down in the wild thornberries. He kills it.
Okay. Next to our final round, the director. As we know, Robert Zemeckis directed Back to the Future, and he did 11 out of 10 job directing that movie. He's an awesome director, still a great director. The reason why I chose to choose a new director because when Robert Zemeckis, I don't think he makes these type of films anymore. He does not do the genre films. He does more personal films like Fly and One from Tomorrow and stuff like that. So let's choose a new director that's fit for this version of Back to the Future. So Danny, who's your choice?
This was also a little tough. I went with Jeff Nichols, though, who we know from Mud. That was one of his Take Shelter was probably his big break. And then in 2016, he did Midnight Special and Loving. I was like, this was kind of an interesting choice, but I landed on it because I didn't want someone who has like too specific a style that would kind of clash with the script we have. This is such a movie. I wanted someone. Part of why Zemeckis was chosen was, he wrote it, but or co-wrote it with Bob Gale, but he was a little chosen by Spielberg of someone who could kind of capture that energy. And the thing about Jeff Nichols is, I don't know if he's ever proven that. He's not a real Hollywood guy. I believe he lives in Texas, but he's someone who works well within some of these systems. Mud has Matthew McConaughey. It had Matthew McConaughey just as the McConaissance was happening, and it has Reese Witherspoon. He can kind of work with Hollywood. He made 2 movies in 1 year with Loving and Midnight Special. Other things about him, he has explored themes of family, and parentage. Take Shelter and is about the anxiety of being a parent in a lot of ways. So I think the relationship between kids and parents interests him. All of his, and so is Midnight Special. That is a movie about kind of letting go of your kids and kids becoming autonomous. So I think he does have these interests of parents and kids. So I think he could bring an interesting degree to that. He works really well with kids. He's worked with some of the people we've mentioned. He worked with Ty Sheridan. I don't know if I think the kid from It, Jay Lieberton, and who's also in Knives Out, but he's the kid in Midnight Special. I don't know if that was his first big role or if he did St. Vincent first or whatever, but he works really well with kids. He knows how to get good natural performances. Not that we're casting that young, but he works well with ensembles too. He brings in different people. Nick Kroll, of all people, is in Loving as a lawyer. So he knows how to bring in different sorts of people. I think he can play different types. All 4 of the movies I've really mentioned are dramas to different varying degrees. And then I think with Midnight Special, we show he can handle a kind of bigger scope. He can handle things that are a little special effects driven. And Midnight Special does have a Spielberg kind of feel to it. It is about this parentage thing. It's about it's got these sci-fi twists. It kind of feels like a young Spielberg, a Sugarland Express, E.T. kind of vibe. So I think it would be a very interesting, he's more of an indie director, but I think if it was hey, let's bring this in. I think Warner Brothers has worked with him. I think he was early on in Aquaman and was maybe in talks to direct, but he didn't want to do it. But this might be a smaller thing that he'd be more interested, but on a bigger, more commercial scale. I'd like to see the sensibility he brought to it.
Okay, Erik.
My choice is Taika Waititi for director. He has been the master of tone for the past 10 years, in my opinion. He has made films that are tough to narrow down to one genre, just like Back to the Future. There's everything in his films, like Hunt for the Wilder People with Sam Neill and Julian Dennison, and of course from Deadpool 2. If Taika wants us to laugh, we'll laugh, especially at the rivalry between Neill and Dennison. If he wants us to cry a particular scene in Jojo Rabbit involving shoes, we will cry. We need a sense of adventure and for Back to the Future, and we definitely get that in Thor as the characters try to escape from Grandmaster's planet. In that film, also like Taika has like visually developed like a friendship between like two mismatched characters that would not say anything to each other normally. So like you get that with Marty and Doc, but he perfectly showed that in Hunt for the Wilder People, because like Julian Dennis and Sam Neill couldn't stand each other, but they grow a friendship throughout. So like when you have a younger kid and an adult, like it's more like a father-son type of relationship. I think he can perfectly capture that with Doc and Marty. But so he's very good at unlikely friendships, but also he has a history of like adapting stories to the screen, like with his own twist. Like in Jojo Rabbit, Hitler was not in the book, or I mean, he's mentioned, but not in the way that he is in the film. So I feel like he could work with like ideas to make Back to the Future feel fresh, especially for the modern days. Like, I mean, God, who knew we would like a movie about a boy who wants to be a Nazi? Like, well, the Oscars, they loved it, and they gave him an Oscar. They gave him best screenplay that year. And like, he writes the scripts himself, or he's always involved in the writing process. But also, most importantly, he has worked with a lot of ensembles, and he's just, not only do they work well together, they work well on their own. He just brings so much life to everything he does, always gives a moment, everyone to shine, even Carl Urban in Thor Ragnarok. Like, I feel like he could add things and just make it more inventive. And of course, Back to the Future's fun. I can't remember one movie where I didn't have fun watching a Taika Waititi film, especially my favorite, What We Do in the Shadows. He just is one of those guys that can make this a lot of fun. So I think he can pull it off.
Okay, guys, discuss and debate.
New Zealand humor is so specific, and not that like that's his only branch, because like Thor Ragnarok exists, but like I just feel he's a different energy, and like when you bring in someone who is such a comedian in their own right, I think there's gonna be the struggle to make it more of his own versus like what the script is. And I like Taika Waititi. Like, you know, I loved his movies. I think he's too specific of a voice that I don't know how much he could take on a directing job and just be the like person to come in and execute a vision of something without it being too much of his own thing. And like, I mean, this is the challenge of this.
No, but if he didn't do that last episode of Mandalorian, I would agree with you. Because I feel like he jumped into that Star Wars work. There's some little things that are his. I'm pretty sure the Stormtroopers constantly missing might have been his idea. But other than that, that was an hour, but he put like what could have been an easily 2-hour movie into an emotional ride. Like especially with like how he handled Mandalorian's relationship with IG-11. Because in the beginning they hated each other, but by the end there was a relationship, and this is in 1 hour. There is a relationship that grows. I think he could.
But there's also
watch that.
He directed the 7th episode of The Mandalorian,
Final one, the 8th one,
or the 8th one. Okay, there's 7 episodes of build up there, like
7 episodes of build up, but that was
the system.
That's on
of 7 people having set up or done a lot of legwork for him and coming in and directing, and like
he jumped in like it was nothing.
I don't know how like the TV works necessarily, of like how much can he bring to it versus like how much is it he just coming in doing it, you know, and how much is it being kept to a tone by its showrunner who is also a director that is
our Biff, yeah.
Our Biff, not quite our Biff.
Not Biff.
But I just think, I just Taika's too much of his own guy, and like he's too much of his own vibe. And New Zealand comedy is such a thing.
You can, but if he
don't want him
Thor and the Mandalorian, I feel like it's just that's like he can handle a studio. I feel like telling.
Yeah,
him
but even Thor is a.
I don't think Jeff Nichols can.
Movie.
Jeff Nichols seems like do his own thing. He never really done anything commercial. This would be the perfect opportunity for him. But also,
he's never really done anything commercial. He did Ragnarok.
Very like a little too intense.
Huh?
I think Jeff Nichols, like his movies are great, but they have a tendency of getting like so intense. I'm like, oh my God. It's like, it just sometimes it's great, but I don't know if it works for Back to the Future. I feel like Taika can like you said about Mandalorian, there were building blocks set up for him, but I feel like Taika can do his own building blocks. And he did that for Jojo Rabbit. He did that for Under the Wilder People. He did that in What We Do in the Shadows. Like, it's just, he's good at setting things up. And I feel like he can put all those stories and subplots together and give it a good ending, especially create his own universe.
I think another thing I like about Nichols is he's kind of a younger guy. He's still getting his footing. And he's someone that I think Spielberg would be well to mentor. Like, I think Spielberg could kind of find something in this guy. They can bond over dad issues, apparently.
Keeping the same producers.
Huh?
I said if we're keeping the same producers.
Yeah, assuming we're keeping Spielberg on as exec producer. Wait, what was the ruling?
Let's just say the same producers.
Okay. I think, like, Spielberg likes to be in that role of, like, mentoring young people. And I think, like, Spielberg could find ways to work with Nichols to, like, bring out what works really well and, like, maybe temper down things like that aren't appropriate. And, like, I think I think Nichols is a bit more of a clay that he can mold in a good way, even though he is, like, an established, or he has, like, made multiple movies and, like, does have his footing.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, Taika, I don't know how he came in, directed an episode of Mandalorian. Yeah, he did Thor, and, like, but Thor, like, the way he's talked about it is Kevin Feige and other Marvel execs, they were more concerned about Black Panther. They were more concerned about other things. They kind of let them do their own thing in Australia when they were making Ragnarok. So I don't know how well, and we've known, and Taika, I don't know how well he works with other people in that capacity. I know, like,
coming back. I mean, Sam Neill's worked with him several times.
Well, yeah, not in a
will come back to work with him.
But, like, not like that he's a bad collaborator. I don't know how well he would work with, like, a studio in that same sense. Like, you know, he was, like,
for a while.
He had a huge role in Moana early on, but then he kind of left because he's like, all right, I'm out of here. You don't need me. I don't care. This isn't quite my thing. I mean, I don't know the whole story there, but, like, so I'm just curious if, like, he gets a little too bogged down, if it's too much of a universe movie, it's too much of a Spielberg, if he's has to be too loyal to the script when he wants to do his own thing. And again, I just feel his way of comedy, he made it work for Thor. He kind of got, because that's such a departure from other things.
He redefined Thor because Thor was going nowhere until he came in.
Yeah.
Thank God.
But, like, that's kind of a thing, too, of, like, Thor worked because no one cared what the first two Thor movies were. But imagine, like, you care what the first two Thor movies were. Like, I've heard some people, like Logan, it seems like, is one of those people. And, like, we have someone we're sort of mutually connected to this guy, Aaron, who's, like, doesn't like, didn't like Ragnarok because it's so different from 1 and 2. I don't know if Logan's
I think Logan's saying he loves Ragnarok.
I liked all 3.
All right. But I'm just saying there are some people who might not, because it's not the same vibe, because it's Taika coming in and it's like, all right, let's throw it all out the window. Let's do it. I want to do it this way. I want to do it my own way, which, you know.
Even Dark World.
Which, like, works because the general populace didn't like 1 and 2 of Thor.
We just needed a departure, but, like, also the one thing I feel like Taika is, like, the perfect choice because he knows how to capture heart.
Yeah.
I feel like we got that.
I'm not
like,
saying
I
he
didn't
doesn't.
expect that at the end of Jojo Rabbit, but he was able to pull that off there, and he perfectly pulled it off at Home for the Wilder People.
So does Jeff Nichols. Like, there's so much heart to loving, and that ending of Midnight Special when they say goodbye to the kid, like, God, that hits so hard. I think Taika is too established and too much of his own voice that he just makes Back to the Future something completely different. And I don't know if he just brings the same kind of energy of, like, what the script is. And, like, I feel like he might be too conflicted. He might have too conflicting of a voice that we don't kind of get the pureness of what Back to the Future could be. Even though, like, and, like, I get he's, like, he's, like, I mean, bringing up Hunt for the Wilder People is a good argument because, like, you know, it is, like, about the partnership of, like, a young boy and an older dude. So, like, he's got some similar vibes there, which is probably why he might not want to do this movie. I don't know how Taika would even, like, feel or react. I think he's
That's
more.
how I feel about Jeff Nichols, though. It's like, will he want to like go with studios? Like, can studios tell him what to do?
You know,
I feel
I
like
think
he
if
would, working with
Spielberg's
Disney.
the guiding force behind this project, and like I think he was very much with the original because he had just had E.T. and people were like, you don't know what you're doing, just make the movie. I think Spielberg being the go-to, I think again he can mold Jeff Nichols a little more. I think it's more interesting. I think it's more interesting too to give an opportunity like that to someone who is still more. Where Taika would be fine either way. He did Ragnarok. He's doing Love and Thunder. Again, he even said with Love and Thunder, it's like, yeah, if I make another one, I don't think it's going to be like another MCU movie. I think it's going to be more like a Ragnarok. It's going to be a sequel to that. So I think he just too is involved in his own world and his own voice, which is great. And I'd rather just see him take on other projects or just take on his own original stuff than try and do something that has such a specific vibe and such a specific voice. Where opposed to someone who has done a little more varied things, like Take Shelter, Mud, all three of those things, or all four of those movies, you can see similar vibes, but they do have a little more variance to them. And I think I'd rather, if we're going to give a huge franchise to someone, I want to give it to someone who hasn't done that before, who doesn't have their own kind of establishment, and just like see like what they can do. I'm more interested in that. This was a movie made by a guy who's just starting out in his career. Zemeckis had made like these comedies like Used Cars and Hard Day's Night, and then like he did one big studio thing, which was like kind of this Romancing the Stone. And this was kind of the big breakthrough for him that guaranteed him the rest of his career. I'd rather give it to someone who doesn't have that. I think we know what Taika can do. I think we've seen Taika. I think Taika would be fine. I think Taika would also just butt heads because he'd want to make it a little more of his own voice. And people would be like, no, this script works really well. You don't have to bring in your New Zealand kind of comedy to it. So
I feel like he would still go with it. So I don't know if he had anything to do with the script of Ragnarok, did he?
He didn't have a writing credit on Ragnarok, but he definitely improv'd a lot, and he made it his own.
Since like the improv and just the dynamic we have between Marty and Doc, I feel like they, especially Bryan Cranston, as talented as he is, and Tom Holland as well, I think he could just really let them improv and just kind of go like Phil Lord and Chris Miller probably would with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum in 21 Jump Street. So I feel like it just needs that Artur approach, and I feel like that's where Taika can bring it in and I just want to have fun. That's why like Jeff Nichols' movies are great, but I don't like call them fun. Back to the Future.
But this would be
I think Taika has that.
Working with a script he hasn't that he didn't write, I think would be a really interesting opportunity for him. And I would be way more interested to see what someone who like has proven himself to some extent, as opposed to a guy who has his own vibe and is just gonna like, kind of, if he doesn't agree, he's just not gonna care and he's gonna go back to doing what we do in the shadows.
Okay. Awesome round. Great round all around. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Sorry, I was muted. My bad. This is a very interesting round because I think it all kind of boils down to one main premise, which is that are you okay with an auteur director helming a movie of this caliber and not just completely driving it off the rails? Because I know in Hollywood there's like a lot of talk about, oh, what would happen if like Wes Anderson directed a Star Wars movie or what? And there's a lot of talk about Tarantino wanting to do a Star Trek movie. And it's like, I'm never really the one who is a fan of that kind of thing. Cause while I love both of those directors and I love Taika Waititi as well, I don't want them like fooling around with a formula that works and we know works. But at the same time, for me personally, for both of these directors, I've only seen one movie for both of them. I've only seen Thor Ragnarok and Mud for Jeff Nichols, and I liked both of them. And the decision for me boils down to who I think could make it the best. Because I think that if we're going off of a universe where the 1985 Back to the Future movie doesn't exist, I want this movie to do well. And I think that Taika Waititi might end up becoming a Edgar Wright for Ant-Man scenario where Steven Spielberg's like, Taika, stick to the plan, and very much like Edgar Wright, he's like, nah, I'm just gonna leave and make my own thing. So with that in mind, I'm gonna go with Jeff Nichols.
Okay, Logan.
I do find it interesting that we're taking fictitious behind-the-scenes drama and nurturing the further careers of the directors after these movies into consideration, like who's going to be nurtured better by Spielberg as we're kind of moving along. At the end of the day, what I was kind of hearing with the different debates, for me, kind of boiled down to two things. Danny, with Jeff Nichols, you're right. He makes a very competent movie. All of his movies are solid. They're really well put together, and they all hit the emotional beats really, really well. But they hit it like a sledgehammer on a railroad track. They hit it to a point where it feels very mismatched for something fun like Back to the Future. It feels like David Fincher directing E.T. It does not feel like it fits tonally at all. I know you're saying Jeff Nichols could. I'm sure he could. But a lot of the arguments that I was hearing from you kind of boiled down to, well, Jeff Nichols is the safe choice. He's the safe choice for the studio. He's the safer. It's Back to the Future. The whole point of that movie at its core was we don't want the safe thing because we are not like Disney didn't want to do it because they were like, hey, no, we can't do it. Like Universal took a risk on it with going, no, we trust this quirky little odd movie. And because of that, I think you need a director who has that kind of voice and attitude that can really kind of carry it and be this fun, awesome thing that we're imagining. Because also, the previous one doesn't exist. So like we're holding it up to that caliber, but if this movie's released, it doesn't have that preconceived notion. So yeah, I think if I had to pick between the two choices, I would have to go with Erik's with Taika Waititi.
Okay. This one was another really tough one for me. I was back in like the Marty argument. I was really back and forth on this one for your arguments of Jeff Nichols and Taika Waititi. I love what both of you brought to the table about these two guys. I love how Erik talk about Taika doing very diverse films. It shows offset relationships very well. He has a good history of adapting stories. Gives everyone a shining moment. And then, Danny with Jeff Nichols, he can do coming of age films with great kids, knows how to portray relations with parents and kids really well. He knows how to do intense scenes. He knows how to do heartwarming scenes. All around good arguments. But you know what? The guy who I'm officially going to go with, again, it's a little kind of obvious. I am also going to go with Taika Waititi because with Taika Waititi, I know there's the argument that brought up about, he has too specific a voice and he wants to do more of his own thing. He's kind of rebellious. But you know what? I think, like, Ragnarok was, like, the first huge studio movie I think Taika did under a studio, like, under Kevin Feige, under Marvel and stuff, or he was looked at. But even with Ragnarok, I think people like Marvel and Disney trusted Taika what he was doing. And then he made his own thing with Jojo Rabbit. And now then he did an episode of Mandalorian. They completely trust Taika with that. And there's even rumors that he's going to be doing his own Star Wars movie now. So I think the studios, they have a lot of trust in Taika Waititi because they know what he could bring. They know what he could pull off. They're not too worried about him that he'll go too much off script. Even if he adds some improvisements to the current Back to the Future script as it is, I think he's going to work well with that because he knows how much to improvise and he knows when to stop and he knows when to come to reel the story back in with the relationship with the characters, with the heartfelt moments like he does in Jojo Rabbit. Even though that was his own script, that was his own thing. So even though Jeff Nichols is a great director, if they chose him, I think he still would have killed it. I'm going to ultimately go with Taika Waititi. So there it is, guys. That's our director for Back to the Future 2020. Now, just to give you what we got in the end, our official cast and director for Back to the Future 2020: Jennifer Parker, played by Joey King; Strickland, played by John C. Ginley; Biff Tannen, played by Jimmy Tatro; Lorraine McFly, played by Florence Pugh; George McFly, played by Asa Butterfield, Doc Brown, played by Bryan Cranston, Marty McFly, played by Tom Holland, and directed by Taika Waititi. So there it is, guys. That's our first episode of Cast of the Future. Now, before we get out of here, Logan, you want to share any final thoughts on this debate so far? How it went?
Oh, I mean, it was a tricky one. That's kind of the thing. I mean, we said it at the beginning that Back to the Future is a damn near perfect movie. It's a movie that we all hold in really high regard. It means something massive to all of us for different reasons. And honestly, I love the cast that we have put together here. And I know this is all like, we're probably not going to get a chance to see this movie, but if I was to see a trailer, if I was to see the original trailer for Back to the Future with these folks in it, I'd be excited to see this movie. So yeah, I think we got a good bunch put together here.
Danny, what are your thoughts on the results?
I hate them. No.
Hang with Jeremy.
Because my choices are right and no one else's. No, I think it's interesting. I would really love to see just Tom Holland working off of Bryan Cranston. I think that's a cool dynamic. And since we got Taika in there, I am curious what he would bring, how he would make it his own, how he would change it, what sort of visuals he would bring to the movie. Yeah, I think it'd be I really like thought experiments like these. So I think it turned out pretty well. I still don't like our parent cast though. I just gotta say, sorry, Erik. I think it's a backslide for Florence Pugh and Asa, and I don't want robots in my movie, so no Asa Butterfield.
Kevin, what are your thoughts on the overall results?
Well, before I begin, our buddy Jeremy couldn't make it here. So in honor of him, Back to the Future sucked. I don't know what we're even talking about this, but no, in all seriousness, Logan already said it. He hit the nail on the head. Back to the Future is a perfectly made film. That being said, Curtis, hearing you say the cast and director just all in a row, I was like, damn, I want to watch that. That's exciting. So, and it just really shows that we were able to come up with a coalition of both of every casting choice that Erik and Danny were able to make, and shout out to Travis as well. And the thing is that this makes me really excited going forward to watch and participate in future Cast to the Future series videos, because this was fun.
Erik, what are your thoughts on the overall results?
Well, I'd rush to see this movie because Taika Waititi's directing it, so I'm in either way. It's got my money. Thank goodness it's not that you said it's not going to be a remake, because I don't know why yesterday I was going into this thinking it was a remake, and when you mentioned that rule, I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I'm like, it's not a remake. It's going to be the first movie, the first time we're exposed to this Back to the Future. I love all the casting. I mean, Danny, I loved all your decisions, but Bryan Cranston, Tom Holland, that is perfect. And I love my choices, but that was very hard to argue with. There was times I'm like, how do I argue against Bryan Cranston? How do I argue against Tom Holland? And I mean, I tried my best, so there's times I couldn't interrupt, but
Erik, I forgot to mention, since you got Taika Waititi as the director, I'm surprised you didn't say Taika Waititi as Doc Brown.
Oh, that would be good. That
would have been awesome.
I don't know why I didn't consider that. There's a lot of opportunities we've had. I'm like, wait, that would have been perfect. Who was the other? We had another possibility for Doc Brown.
Chris Elliott.
And there's somebody else.
Yeah, it's like it was also, you brought really good arguments to the table for people I wouldn't even consider Joey King and honestly you made a really compelling case for Jack Dylan Grazer, who I kind of wrote down as an option early on, and
the dark horse.
Well, I decided to go with Shamik Moore, but I was like, oh yeah, that's
Until the parents got casted, that was a wonderful choice. I'm like, who else? Miles Morales. I'm like, I hear his voice in that, but then you see him as Marty McFly. I'm like, that would have been a great choice.
Oh yeah, because there's total Marty vibes from Shamik Moore in Spider-Verse, so yeah, I could definitely see that.
Dope as well. I thought even the nervousness he had in Dope, and the awkwardness as a teenager, I thought he killed it.
And we all know Taika's going to give himself a cameo as, Lorraine's dad, wheeling in the TV, now we get to watch Jackie Gleason while we...
Or he'd probably play Strickland.
Well, yeah. taking over for John
He's
Cena.
great. I mean, we saw him as Hitler. He was pretty intimidating.
Nah,
that character.
let's be honest. Taika would probably sit in and do all the Huey Lewis cameos.
Yeah.
I'm afraid you're just too
No
darn
rock and roll.
That's true. That's true. I love the results overall. Yes, looking at this cast, looking at this director, yes, I would go see this movie in a heartbeat. Whether it was a reboot or remake or it was our first exposure back to the future if it never existed, I would just go rush and see this movie, and it would be a great time in the theater. So, yep, guys, that is our first episode for Cast of the Future, our Back to the Future episode. I'd like to thank Logan, Danny, Kevin, and Erik for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell to know when new videos come out. I'm also going to be doing some movie reviews and stuff like that. So everyone, have a good day, and thanks for watching. Till next time.
Bye-bye.